The morning fog clung to the air like a silent warning as Sarah Morgan stepped off the transport plane and onto the naval base. She tightened the straps on her backpack, feeling the weight of countless eyes on her. She was the only woman arriving that day, an anomaly in a world ruled by men who thrived on toughness and tradition. A soft murmur spread through the group of SEALs standing nearby. Some glanced with curiosity, others with doubt, and a few with outright skepticism. "What's she doing here?" someone muttered under his breath. Sarah didn't need to hear the question to know the answer. She was here to lead. The Navy SEALs were known for their brotherhood, a tight-knit family forged in hardship and battle. A woman wasn't just unexpected, she was unwelcome. Sarah's jaw tightened as she walked past clusters of soldiers whispering in low tones. She had faced tougher challenges in her career, but this was different. This was a silent test of her presence, her ability to stand tall when the world doubted her. The training grounds lay ahead, a sprawling maze of obstacles and trials designed to push every recruit to the breaking point. Sarah knew what awaited her: grueling exercises, relentless drills, and the weight of unspoken judgment. Yet she welcomed it. Every step she took was a statement. She wasn't just any newcomer. She was the commander assigned to lead this unit. Her first encounter was brief but telling. A burly soldier with a smirk approached her as she inspected the training schedules pinned on a board. "You sure you're in the right place, Lieutenant?" he said, his tone laced with challenge. Sarah looked him in the eye, steady and unwavering. "I'm exactly where I need to be." His smirk faltered, but he said no more. The hours that followed tested Sarah's resolve. The men moved like machines, pushing themselves to limits most would never reach. Sarah matched them step for step, her body aching, but her mind sharper than ever. She climbed walls, crawled through mud, and executed precise maneuvers with a skill that left little room for doubt. Yet the whispers persisted. Some tried to undermine her quietly, questioning her strength or her ability to handle command. Others openly doubted her, laughing behind her back when she wasn't looking. The tension was thick, a silent current that threatened to pull her under. But Sarah held firm. Her focus never wavered. Her discipline never faltered. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the men gathered in the barracks. Sarah found a quiet corner and reviewed mission briefs, but she couldn't ignore the eyes still flicking her way. Conversations hushed the moment she entered a room. Some men exchanged looks, unsure how to treat the woman who outranked them all. Yet beneath the doubt, a few watched her closely. They noticed the way she carried herself, the quiet confidence in her every move, and the sharp mind behind her steady gaze. Leadership wasn't just about rank, it was about presence, about earning respect through action and character. Sarah thought back to the years it took to reach this point. The sacrifices, the challenges, the moments when she wondered if it was worth it. But here she was, not just surviving, but ready to lead. Her story was not just about breaking barriers. It was about shattering every preconceived notion about what a leader should look like. As the night settled in, the barracks grew quiet, but Sarah's mind raced with what tomorrow would bring. The real test was just beginning. The men had not yet seen the full measure of her strength, not just the physical, but the mental steel forged in fire and experience. This was her command now, and she would prove to them all that leadership is not given. It's earned every single day. The sun was barely up when the training grounds erupted with activity. The air was thick with determination and the sharp scent of sweat. Sarah Morgan stood at the edge of the obstacle course, watching her team move through each challenge with precision and grit. Today was no ordinary day. It was a silent battlefield where respect had to be earned again and again. The men eyed her cautiously, some with open skepticism, others with grudging curiosity. None could deny the tension simmering beneath the surface. Sarah knew this was more than physical endurance. It was a test of her willpower and leadership. The whistle blew sharply, cutting through the morning air. Without hesitation, Sarah moved forward, her every step deliberate and strong. The first obstacle was a towering wall, slick with rain from the night before. Some men grunted as they hauled themselves over it, but Sarah's lean muscles coiled like a spring as she climbed with steady hands and nimble feet. When she reached the top, a few glances shot her way, surprised, but quickly masked by indifference. She dropped down with a thud and pressed on. Next was the mud crawl. The cold, wet earth clung to her uniform as she dragged herself forward, muscles burning. Around her, men struggled, some slipping and cursing under their breath. Sarah's breath came steady, controlled, a calm in the chaos. She rose, wiped the grime from her face, and met the eyes of one soldier who had been watching her closely since morning. He nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement that she was no ordinary woman. But many others remained silent, their doubts hanging like a heavy cloud. The team moved to the shooting range next, each man and woman lining up to test their marksmanship. Sarah took her position, steadying her breathing as she focused on the distant target. The sharp crack of gunfire echoed repeatedly. Her shots were precise, deliberate. The men noticed. Whispers began again, but this time mixed with a hint of respect. "She's good," one muttered. Sarah didn't reply. Let her accuracy speak. Despite her skills, the quiet resistance never fully vanished. In the mess hall that afternoon, some soldiers exchanged sideways glances as Sarah entered. A few tried to avoid eye contact, others whispered too low to be caught. There was an unspoken challenge in the air. Prove you belong. Sarah felt it keenly, but instead of reacting, she listened. Every whispered doubt was fuel for her determination. Later, during strategy sessions, she laid out plans with calm authority. Her knowledge was deep, her tactics sharp. Yet, the room's energy crackled with underlying tension. One veteran, a man known for his stubbornness, questioned her decisions bluntly. Sarah met his gaze, steady and unwavering. "This isn't about ego," she said quietly. "It's about what works. If we don't trust each other, we fail. Period." The room fell silent. Her words cut through the noise like a knife. As the day wore on, Sarah's presence became harder to ignore. Her steady leadership, combined with undeniable skill, began to shift the team's attitude, but only slightly. Old habits die hard, and some still held on to their prejudices. She wasn't just fighting the physical challenges of SEAL training. She was battling ingrained doubt and bias. But Sarah had faced tougher fights before. Her resolve was ironclad. That evening, exhaustion settled deep into her bones, but Sarah couldn't afford to rest her mind. She sat alone, reviewing mission notes by the dim light of a lantern. The men's doubts echoed in her thoughts. She wondered how long it would take before they saw her not as a woman in uniform, but as the leader she was trained to be. It wasn't just about proving her strength, it was about changing hearts. Somewhere deep inside, Sarah felt a quiet shift. A few soldiers had started watching her differently, no longer with suspicion, but with the first flickers of respect. It was subtle, but it was there. The hard part was only beginning, but the smallest victories often mattered most. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She would meet them head-on, just like she always had. Because leadership was never given. It was earned with sweat, courage, and unwavering determination. Sarah Morgan was ready to show them all exactly what that meant. The day's brutal training finally ended, and the team shuffled toward the showers, bodies heavy with exhaustion and minds still on the challenges ahead. The steam rose in thick clouds, filling the cramped space with a humid silence that felt almost oppressive. Sarah Morgan moved quietly among the men, knowing full well the unspoken tension lurking beneath the surface. Some of them still saw her as an outsider, a woman who didn't belong in their world. Tonight, that tension was about to boil over. As the water cascaded down the pipes, some of the men's whispers grew louder, their jokes sharper. They thought the steam masked their voices, that Sarah wouldn't hear the snide remarks or the mocking laughter. "Wonder if she even knows how to handle the pressure," one soldier whispered, the edge in his voice unmistakable. Another chuckled. "Yeah, bet she's all talk and no action." The group's laughter echoed off the tiled walls, a cruel soundtrack to the moment. Sarah felt the sting of the words, but she remained calm, steady. She knew their mockery came from fear, fear of the unknown, fear of change. Her presence challenged their carefully constructed world, and they reacted with the only weapon they knew, ridicule. But Sarah had long ago learned to see past the noise. The real battle was coming. Suddenly, one of the younger soldiers, emboldened by the group's laughter, stepped closer and said louder, maybe the commander should just stick to giving orders and leave the fighting to the men. The room fell silent for a heartbeat, but the tension was electric. All eyes turned to Sarah, waiting for her reaction. She didn't hesitate. Her voice was calm but firm, cutting through the silence like a blade. "I'm not just your commander. I'm the reason you're alive after every mission. You can mock me now, but remember who's leading you out there." The shock on their faces was immediate. Sarah didn't shout or demand respect. She simply stated the truth. The room remained quiet, the weight of her words sinking in. For the first time, the soldiers saw her not as a woman trying to fit in, but as the leader they relied on, the one who carried the burden of their lives. The laughter had died, replaced by a heavy, respectful silence. But Sarah knew respect wasn't won by words alone. It had to be earned again and again, in every action, every decision. This moment was just the beginning. The next days would bring even tougher tests. Missions that pushed every man and woman to their limits. But Sarah's command was growing stronger. The men who had mocked her began to watch her differently. Their jokes turned into questions. Their sneers became silent observations. They were starting to see her as a commander who led with unwavering courage and quiet strength. Late that night, Sarah stood alone under the dim light of the barracks, the memory of the shower confrontation fresh in her mind. She thought about the road ahead, the battles, the challenges, the prejudice that lingered like a shadow. But she also felt a quiet certainty growing inside her. She was exactly where she was meant to be, the commander who would change everything. Tomorrow, the team would face a new mission. And when they did, Sarah Morgan would be there, leading them not just with orders, but with the undeniable proof of her strength, proof that no one could mock or deny. The showers were steamy, the air thick with moisture and tension. Water hammered down from the pipes above as soldiers scrubbed away the grime of a relentless day. The mood was heavy, conversations hushed, but beneath the surface, unease simmered. Sarah Morgan stood still, letting the water wash over her as the murmurs grew louder. The men had been skeptical since her arrival, but tonight, the cracks in their acceptance were laid bare. "Commander," one voice called out, sharp with disbelief. "You really think you can lead us?" "Lead SEALs." The words dripped with sarcasm, echoing off the tiled walls. Others laughed, some shook their heads, as if the very idea was absurd. Sarah's silence only fueled their boldness. The shower was a place where toughness was measured, and to them she was still the newcomer, a woman trying to prove herself where few had before. Then, amid the laughter and whispers, Sarah spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, and it cut through the noise like a razor. "I'm not here to ask for your approval," she said. "I'm here to lead." The room stilled. The water's pounding was the only sound as all eyes turned to her. "I've spent years training, fighting, and leading units in the most dangerous operations. I'm the commander of this team. That's not a title I wear lightly." There was a pause, a beat suspended in time, before she added, "The respect I command isn't about gender. It's about competence, about trust, and that trust is earned through every mission, every decision." Her words hung in the steamy air, heavy and undeniable. The soldiers' laughter died. Some exchanged uncertain glances. The tension shifted almost imperceptibly, but it was there. Sarah's revelation was a shock, a seismic shift in how they viewed her. The woman they had mocked was not just a peer. She was their leader, responsible for their lives. One veteran, a man known for his sharp tongue, finally broke the silence. "Commander Morgan," he said, his voice low but respectful. "We didn't realize," he trailed off, eyes avoiding hers. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. Sarah nodded, accepting the unspoken gesture. "We're a team," she said. "And on that team, everyone counts. Doubt me all you want, but when the mission starts, I expect you to follow my lead. No exceptions." The men in the shower stood quietly, some with heads bowed, others with eyes locked on her. The mocking had ended, replaced by a tentative respect born of truth. Sarah knew this was only the beginning. Respect wasn't granted overnight. It was a slow, steady process, built on shared hardship, unwavering leadership, and undeniable results. As the water cooled and the men began to leave, the atmosphere had shifted. The barriers were not gone, but the foundation for trust had been laid. Sarah felt the weight of command settle firmly on her shoulders, heavier now, but also steadier. That night, as she prepared for rest, Sarah reflected on the moment. The confrontation in the showers had been a turning point. She had stood her ground not with anger, but with truth. The men had seen her not just as a woman, but as the leader she was. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, and more tests of her command. But Sarah was ready. She had faced doubt, scorn, and disbelief, and she had risen above it all. The team was watching now, waiting, and she would prove to them that leadership wasn't about gender. It was about courage, skill, and heart. In the quiet of the night, Sarah Morgan knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same again. The morning light crept through the windows of the briefing room as the team gathered. The air was thick with anticipation, but something had shifted, an unspoken acknowledgement that things were no longer the same. Sarah Morgan stood at the front, calm and composed, her presence commanding the room in a way that went beyond rank. The men who had doubted her now watched closely, searching her face for the strength they had heard whispers about, but had yet to fully see. She began outlining the mission with precise detail, her voice steady and clear. Every plan, every contingency was laid out with a level of expertise that demanded attention. The men listened intently, the skepticism replaced by cautious respect. This wasn't just theory. It was a plan born from countless hours in the field, from experience that couldn't be dismissed. One of the younger soldiers raised his hand. "Commander Morgan, what if the intel changes mid-operation? How do we adapt?" Sarah met his gaze directly. Adaptability is key. You trust your training and your team. You communicate. You adjust as a unit. Her answer was concise, but layered with confidence that resonated with the room. As the briefing ended, a veteran approached her quietly. "You've earned our respect, Commander," he said, voice low but sincere. "Not many could stand where you stand." Sarah nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the hard road behind and the battles yet to come. It wasn't praise she sought, it was trust, and here it was beginning to form. The days that followed were a test of every skill, every ounce of resilience. The team moved as one, pushed by Sarah's unwavering leadership. She led training drills with precision, but more importantly, she listened. She noticed the quiet doubts still lingering in some eyes and worked to earn their confidence, not by words, but by action. During a particularly grueling endurance run, one soldier faltered, muscles burning and breath ragged. Sarah slowed beside him, her tone calm but firm. "Keep going. Pain is temporary. Focus on the mission." Her words cut through his fatigue, and with renewed determination, he pushed forward. Moments like these stitched the team together in ways no lecture ever could. At night, around the campfire, conversations started to change. The men shared stories not just of past missions, but of the challenges they faced with Sarah's leadership. "She's tough," one said quietly, "but fair." Another added, "She doesn't just order us around. She fights alongside us." These whispers of respect spread like wildfire, transforming doubt into loyalty. Sarah felt it too, the slow but steady breaking down of walls. The men who had mocked her were now standing beside her, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Trust was no longer a fragile thread, but a strong bond forged through shared hardship and unwavering leadership. One afternoon, as they prepared for a simulated mission, the team gathered around Sarah. The tension was replaced by a quiet confidence. "Ready to lead us through?" a soldier asked, eyes locking with hers. Sarah smiled, the weight of command feeling less like a burden and more like a shared responsibility. "Always," she replied. Her presence had become more than just authority. It was a source of strength. The team had learned that leadership was not about gender or appearances, but about courage, skill, and the ability to inspire. Sarah Morgan had carved her place in their hearts and minds, and that respect was now carved in stone. The journey was far from over, but the foundation was set. From doubt to respect, from division to unity, Sarah had changed the course of the team's story. And as they moved forward, there was no question. She was the commander they would follow through fire and shadow. The sun was barely above the horizon when the alarm sounded. The team sprang into action, the weight of their gear suddenly forgotten as adrenaline surged through their veins. This was no drill. A real mission was unfolding, and Sarah Morgan's calm authority guided every movement. The men who had once doubted her now followed without hesitation, trusting her lead as instinctively as their own breath. The briefing had been clear. Intelligence reported an enemy stronghold deep in hostile territory. Their objective was precise: gather intel, neutralize threats, and extract without leaving a trace. Sarah's plan was meticulous, every detail accounted for, yet she remained flexible, knowing that in the field, unpredictability was the only constant. They moved swiftly through dense forest, the silence around them broken only by the crunch of boots on dry leaves and the occasional whispered command. Sarah's eyes scanned the horizon, always alert. The men moved in formation, their trust in her growing with each passing moment. Hours later, they reached the outskirts of the enemy compound. Shadows clung to the walls like ghosts as the team prepared to breach. Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "Positions," she commanded. The men took their places, each movement practiced and precise. The tension was palpable. One wrong move could mean disaster. Sarah led the breach herself, her senses sharp, her mind clear. They swept through the compound with lethal efficiency, neutralizing threats silently and gathering the crucial intel they needed. Every second was a test of their training, their discipline, and their trust in each other. And through it all, Sarah's leadership never wavered. As they made their way out, an unexpected patrol appeared. The men tensed, weapons raised. Sarah's quick thinking turned what could have been a firefight into a silent retreat. "Fall back, stay low," she ordered. Her calm direction turned panic into order. The team melted into the shadows, evading detection by mere inches. Once safely away, the men finally exhaled, the adrenaline fading, but the respect for their commander solidified. Sarah looked at each of them, exhaustion in her eyes, but pride shining through. The mission had been a success, but more importantly, it had cemented her place as their leader. That night, around the campfire, the atmosphere was different. The men shared stories not just of the mission's success, but of how Sarah's leadership had carried them through the most dangerous moments. "She's not just a commander," one said quietly. "She's the backbone of this team." Another nodded. "We follow her because she leads from the front." Sarah listened, feeling the weight of their words settle in her heart. The battles they faced were not just against enemies, but against doubt, fear, and prejudice. She had won more than missions. She had won their trust and loyalty. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Sarah knew the road ahead would bring more challenges, more tests of courage and strength. But she was ready, because leadership was never about being accepted immediately. It was about standing firm, proving oneself day after day, mission after mission. And Sarah Morgan had done exactly that. The days after the mission were filled with debriefings and intense training, but beneath the surface, something had undeniably changed. The team no longer whispered in corners or cast doubtful glances toward Sarah Morgan. Instead, they watched her closely, absorbing every move, every decision. Her presence was no longer a question. It was the anchor that steadied them through the chaos. One afternoon, as they prepared for another grueling exercise, the veteran, who had first shown a crack in his skepticism, approached Sarah. His voice was low, but sincere. "Commander, the men want you to know, we're with you. All the way." The words hit her harder than any battle wound ever could. It wasn't just respect, it was allegiance. But loyalty in the SEALs wasn't given lightly. It was tested and proven under fire, and Sarah knew that her real test was still ahead. The next mission was rumored to be the toughest yet, deep behind enemy lines, with stakes higher than ever before. As the team prepared, the weight of responsibility pressed on her like never before. Lives depended on her decisions. The night before the operation, Sarah stood alone outside the barracks, the cold air sharp against her skin. She thought of every soldier who counted on her, every doubt she'd overcome, every scar earned. This mission was more than a job. It was a defining moment. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the trust she'd earned, for the unity of the team, and for the honor of every woman who would come after her. When dawn broke, the team moved with purpose and precision. The mission was fraught with danger, every step shadowed by uncertainty. Yet Sarah's steady voice kept them focused, her quick decisions steering them clear of traps and ambushes. The men trusted her instincts because they had seen them proven time and time again. Midway through the mission, an explosion rocked their position. Chaos erupted, but Sarah's calm command cut through it. "Regroup at Point Delta. Secure the perimeter." Her leadership was a lifeline, her voice a beacon in the storm. The team rallied, moving as one, their trust in her unshakable. Hours later, as they completed their objective and began the extraction, Sarah's mind was sharp, her focus unbreakable. Every detail mattered. Every life mattered. When the last soldier boarded the extraction chopper, the tension finally eased. Back at base, the atmosphere was different. The team gathered not just to report, but to honor the mission's success, and the commander who had led them through it. The veteran who once doubted her stepped forward, raising a glass. To Commander Morgan, who proved that leadership isn't about who you are, but what you do. The room erupted in applause, genuine and heartfelt. Sarah felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of pride and relief. The journey had been long, the battles many, but in this moment, she knew she had broken barriers, not just for herself, but for every woman who dared to lead. That night, as she lay in her bunk, Sarah thought about the road ahead. Challenges would come, but so would victories. She was no longer just the woman they mocked in the showers. She was their commander, their leader, their strength, their heart. And that was a truth no one could deny. The air in the barracks was electric, with a new kind of energy. The men moved with a quiet confidence, their earlier doubts replaced by a shared sense of purpose. Sarah Morgan's leadership had transformed the team, not just in skill, but in spirit. The journey from skepticism to respect had been hard-fought, and now, at last, they stood united. Sarah walked through the camp, observing her team as they prepared for their next mission. There was no need for harsh words or demands. Her presence alone inspired discipline and focus. She had earned their trust, and with it, their loyalty. The men no longer saw her as an outsider or a challenge to their tradition. They saw her as the commander, the one who led them through darkness and danger with unwavering resolve. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah gathered the team for a final briefing. The mission ahead was critical, a test not just of their abilities, but of everything they had built together. She spoke with clarity and calm, outlining the objectives with precision. Every soldier listened, every mind engaged. There was no room for doubt, only determination. After the briefing, a young recruit approached Sarah quietly. "Commander," he said, "thank you for showing us what real leadership looks like. I was skeptical at first, but now I see you're the best leader we could have." Sarah smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. This was the moment she had fought for, not just to prove herself, but to open the door for those who would come after her. The mission unfolded with flawless execution. Every challenge was met head-on, every obstacle overcome with teamwork and skill. Sarah led with the steady hand that had become her trademark, guiding her team through danger and uncertainty without faltering. When they returned, victorious and whole, the respect and admiration in the eyes of her soldiers was unmistakable. In the quiet moments that followed, Sarah reflected on how far she had come. From the whispered doubts in the showers to the full-hearted loyalty of her team, her journey was more than personal triumph. It was a testament to resilience and courage. She had shattered stereotypes and redefined what it meant to be a leader in the most demanding arena. Her story would ripple beyond these barracks, inspiring others to challenge the boundaries of tradition and prejudice. Sarah Morgan wasn't just a commander. She was a trailblazer, a symbol of strength and perseverance. And as she looked to the future, she knew her mission was far from over. Leadership, she understood, was a constant battle, a daily choice to stand firm, to earn respect through action, and to lead with integrity. Sarah was ready to face whatever came next, confident in the team she had forged and the legacy she was building. The men who once mocked her had become her fiercest supporters. Together, they were more than a team. They were a family bound by trust, forged in fire, and led by a commander who had proven that true strength knows no gender. And in that unity, Sarah Morgan found not only victory, but purpose, a purpose that would carry her and her team into every battle yet to come.